Welcome back. This is Kayla with Quilt and Thread. Today we are going to make an apron using the All Ohio Shop Hop fabric. So the fabric that you will need is a Shop Hop square. I cut some scraps of green, a strip of red, and this is a yard. You can pick any fabrics you want, or you can use it all the same color, but I wanted some contrast. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and cut this square to 4.5 inches as it's supposed to be. It kind of has the lines there to help you. With this, I kind of already cut it out. I had two 9-inch squares actually, and I just kind of took one of the squares and cut the 4.5 out of the middle, used the top, the bottom. The pattern will have the exact measurements on there for you if you decide to get this. I'm cutting this down to the 4.5-inch height so that we can go ahead and sew it onto each side. So I'll take it over to the machine and we'll get that sewed on. So you're just going to use a typical quarter-inch seam, and we'll go ahead and just start sewing just down the side there. All right, so I just pressed that open just so you could see, and we're going to put one on the other side, same way. All right, now that was ironed down, and now I'm just folding this in half because, again, I did this without cutting the measurements, but the measurements are on the pattern. So I'm just going to attach this to the top and one to the bottom, and we're just going to sew it into place. I love the creativity of making up my own patterns and following patterns and changing them up. So you can do what you like with this. It's just a simple apron. You could go more in depth with this. This just shows you the square. Then we're going to go ahead and cut it down to a 7 by 9 inch pocket. Again, if you want deeper pockets, bigger pockets, multiple pockets, you can go ahead and do that. This is just kind of up to you, but this is just a simple 1-pocket apron. So I went ahead and squared that up. And that's the block. All right, now we are going to sew the pocket together. So I took the other square that was a 9-inch square. You should cut it down to a 7 by 9. I did not. I just left it on there. I figured once I turn it under, or once I sew it, I can cut it off and make it easier. But whichever way you want to do it. Typically, I do cut them ahead of time. This time, I just did not. And that's why, if you see, I had to lift it up because it didn't meet at the other side. So I really should have cut that little bit off, but again, I did not. So yours will not have that extra piece. I backstitched here. You want to leave a little bit of a hole because we're going to have to turn the pocket inside out. So trim edges, again, cut off that extra little piece, but you want to trim the corners, not to cut the thread, but to help make the corners more straight. And then I just used a tool to help me turn it. And what I'm going to do is just go ahead and put a seam around this to keep it flat. I did iron it down, so you might want to do that as well. Now, my sewing machine's nice. When I stop, the needle goes down. Not all the machines do that, so you could go all the way to the end, stop and do it again, but I just stopped, pivot, and turned. However you want to do it again, that's up to you. And you want to make sure you sew up that bottom seam really well so that it doesn't come unraveled or anything later. So make sure you just go over across that part and make sure you tuck it nice underneath. All right, so hem time, this is the apron body. I went ahead and ironed it first because I had it folded up, so it was kind of crinkled. If you want to starch yours, you can. I typically don't starch my stuff. That's just my personal preference, but whatever you guys like to do. All right, so for the curved section of the apron, kind of the part that goes around your shoulders, that I went ahead and sewed 1/8 of an inch of a seam. That just helps me to turn it under since it's not straight to go ahead and curve. So I use the seam line to fold it, and it kind of acts as a, I don't know what I would want to call that, kind of like a corner for you. So I did it to both sides, and then I'm going to go ahead and still press that under, and I'm still going to do a little bit larger of a seam hem, I'm sorry, so that you have a nice clean edge. All right, so move this away from you a little bit so you can see. All right, so again, just follow this stitch line and it will actually curve along with you. Makes it nice and easy to go ahead and do that. And then once you get that finished, we'll go ahead and fold it under again. All right, so this is me folding it the second time, and I just folded it the same seam that was there. Now, this was not staying down the greatest, probably because I was working so quickly with it. So I did go ahead and just use magic clips to pin it down. If you want to pin it yourself, you can, or you can just kind of hold it as you sew and just be careful with it. But I repeated the same process on this side. And just turn at the stitch, and it just makes it so nice. And the first little fold worked well. It was the second, and again, I was kind of rushing with it. Now, you could starch this a little bit here to help it lay flat, but again, like I said, I just put the magic clips on there. I'll let you see the top so you can kind of see how the curve naturally goes. And then I'm just going to go ahead and sew along that line. Now, it is a little more narrow, so I would go scant of 1/4 inch and just sew around it. Now again, if you wanted to be creative, you could have done a decorative stitch here. I would suggest if you were doing a decorative stitch to still go ahead and do that stitch there, even if it's just a top stitch to hold it down, and then use your machine to go ahead and make a decorative stitch. I just went ahead and kept it simple. Threads, that's kind of up to you. I went with a greenish color because there was so much green. I did kind of the Buckeye shell kind of green. I'm not sure what the actual term for a Buckeye shell is, but I went ahead with that similar kind of pistachio green is kind of what I'd call it. Gave it a little contrast, but not a lot. All right, so there is the stitch for you so you can see it. Again, it's a smaller stitch, but it keeps it nice. So now on this one, I did a little bit bigger. I did not do the stitch because since it was a straight line, it was nice and easy to curve. What you can do is take a marking pen and a ruler and measure like you would with a hem. I did go ahead and do that so that I had a 1/4 inch hem there. And I'm just, again, folding it over so you don't see any of the raw edges. And that's just it. So you could see it up close. Then I did it to both sides. And I'm going to go ahead and sew it, again, using a 1/4 inch seam. Again, if you wanted to use the decorative stitch, you would want to continue it here. And this is kind of just the side seam here. You're going to repeat it then with the other side as well. And here's another close-up view so you could see it. Very nice. All right, then we're going to go ahead and do the top. So with the top, I did a little bit bigger. I did a 1/2 inch and folded it over just because it's going to be holding the strap. So I wanted it a little bit thicker and sturdier so it's doubled over when I sew the straps on. And go ahead and do the same thing. I didn't video it, but with the bottom hem, I did go ahead and mitered the edge because it was sticking out from the shape. So I just folded it under and then pressed it or sewed it down. Go ahead and do that to both sides of the bottom. You won't need to do that on the top. It's just because of the triangular of the bottom. I did go ahead and do 2 sew lines there, and that was just because of the thickness. All right, so for these pockets, you can go ahead and place it where you want. I put it to the side. You could also put it in the middle as that was showing. I did go ahead and sew this on. My recording messed up, but I will show you recording. I decided to do a decorative stitch, but you would do 3 of the 4 sides, leave one side open so that you can use it as a pocket. You could have quilted this as you wanted also, but I chose not to quilt it. So what I'm doing is I just did a basic decorative stitch off of my sewing machine, and I am making sure it follows along the line that I already have. That way you can't see another line. And this will just take a little bit of time, but I think it gives it a little something extra. Again, I'm still using that green. I like the way the green stood out on the green pocket. And again, I'm going to pivot and turn. You can kind of see the decorative hem there. I'm sorry, hem. I'm using the wrong words all over the place. The decorative stitch already in place. Very cute. It does shake it back and forth a little bit, so it is a good idea to go ahead and hold it into place. And just keep your eye on it. Make sure it's following the line that's already there. Now what you could have done before you sewed it on was put the decorative stitch across the top so that it went ahead and finished it off. I did not do that because I wasn't sure whether I was going to do a decorative stitch at first, but I still think it looks nice even with it being on the 3 sides and the top just having a quick little hem. So there's the stitch. It's hard to kind of see, but it's basically like a little triangle shape, more a diamond, I guess. And that's the pockets. All right, so the final steps is just doing the necktie and the waist tie. So I have 2 different colors. I did want to go ahead with the red to give it a little pop, but I also used the body fabric because there was so much of that left. You honestly could have done that for the top and the bottom. So I went ahead and cut this out. This is going to be the top around the necktie first. So it's 2.5 inches by 24 inches. As you can see, my little spot is overcrowded and needs cleaned there, but I've been working on a lot of stuff with the shop hop right now, so it's kind of messy, but as a quilter, I'm sure you understand spots get messy. Okay, and I just did that again. I cut 2 of them. Now you could make them a little bit wider if you want them wider. I personally probably would have liked them to be a little bit wider, but the 2.5 worked out okay. So you have a couple ways of doing this. You can fold this in half. stitch along the side and turn it under, which is what I did for this top section here. Otherwise, you could do it like binding and fold it in half, open it up, fold those towards the middle seam, and then make it a binding. All right, so this is just the close-up. I sewed around all 4 edges of the strap where it met, just to give it a little more stability. So then we're moving on to the waist strap. So again, I did a 2.5, but this needs to be a little bit longer. And you can make it even longer if need be. Again, it depends on the width of the person you're making this for. So this one I just did by a 35, 2.5 by 35. Again, you can make it whatever length you need it to be. And we'll make 2. Now with this one, I did the binding style because I think that comes out looking a little bit nicer. So I'll go ahead and show you how I do that. So fold it in half lengthwise, and you're going to run it all the way down to the edge. Now kind of be careful with this. Mine was very hot. It depends on how hot your iron gets. You might want to wait a second. As you can see, I had a hard time touching it there. I'm not typically heat sensitive, but my iron was very hot that day. So then again, you just fold it in towards the middle seams and you press it. A lot of people do one side at a time, whatever you're comfortable with. I was able to go ahead and do both, and you're going to do it down the whole line there. And then what you'll do is fold that in half and you'll sew along those lines. This just keeps you from seeing any raw edges. Now you could go ahead and act like you were making like a purse strap or something and put some kind of stabilizer or batting in that to give it a little more strength and weight. I did not, because it really, being a waist strap, I don't think it needs it. The neck strap, it might have been a good idea too. And again, I would have wished I would have made it a little bit wider, but that's up to you guys. I mean, you could make it a 3-inch instead of 2.5. You can leave it the 2.5. That's the creativity of patterns. You can alter them to fit your style. So I did take my time here. If you have a foot that does binding, it would have been really helpful here. I just had to keep making sure it was matching up. Again, because I pressed both at the same time and I did it so quickly, it was not wanting to meet up quite as nicely. But it still turned out really cute once I pressed it and fixed it. Now this is the edge. I just fold it under and then go ahead and refold the edges, and then you won't see it. And then I just did the same thing. I attached it to this side here. You're going to want to make 2 of those and put 1 on each side. So I put it a little bit down from where the corner meets the side, the curved corner. And then you can either pin it into place, hold it into place, do the magic clips, whatever you prefer. And then I just backstitched a few times to stabilize it. You could have done all the round square. I didn't do that with this. I figured back stitching was good because this isn't actually holding the weight. It's just keeping it tied around Jill. Now this is just a quick little look of it. You can see it in store and you can see it on the pattern or online, but that is the Simple Ohio Shop Pop Apron. You can purchase this kit online or in the store.